Hi everyone, thanks for the introduction. I am Lorna Taylor. I'm leading the readiness element, both internally within HMRC and externally for the next phase of the new computerised transit system. As just indicated, this is an element that's coming in November 2023. When we left the EU, as a nation, we acceded to the Common Transit Convention in our own right. That's for both Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And as part of that Common Transit Convention rules, all of the member countries need to transfer to the new phase of NCTS by the 30th of November this year. So what we're doing, HMRC as a government department, we are developing the new phase to meet that requirement. We are doing that in accordance with all of the requirements and the regulations that are set out within the design document for the National Transit System. And what we're doing in order to deliver this is we're doing this by what we're calling a direct cutover approach. It's been termed as a big bang. However you want to refer to it, it's essentially we will switch off the current phase 4 system, and then we will have a short period of system downtime, unavailability, while we set up the new one. We're only talking a matter of hours, not days. So we will then switch on the new phase 5 system. The reason that the deadline is the 30th of November for all countries is because there is a conversion tool that's in place at the moment. Some CTC member countries are already using the phase 5 system. We had some delays and some prioritisation due to Brexit, as you all know. And obviously COVID played a part in that as well, while we stood up some support within HMRC for that period as well. So the conversion tool will switch off, or it'll go into what we call a legacy mode from the 30th of November. So at the minute it converts those messages between those countries using phase 4 and those countries who are already on phase 5. And in order to minimise the impact of any goods that are still in transit between that on that cutover period, we're going to implement phase 5 on the 16th of November. So what that means is any goods that are on their journey between the 16th and the 30th of November will still carry on through that process, and that 2-week window should give us time for those movements to go through their journey and for all of the information to flow through as it should do, as it does normally, before that conversion tool switches off on the 30th of November. So what we're saying essentially is that from the 16th of November, when we switch on that new phase 5 system, any goods that start their journey from that date, the information, the declaration will have to be submitted into that new phase 5 system. And as I say, we will make sure that any goods that are still moving through by the 30th of November will be closed down and guarantees released as they would do normally, and we'll do that by performing a manual action within HMRC to ensure that there's no impacts on those guarantees being released. So I just wanted to point out some of the key benefits of the phase 5 system. As I've said, this is a Common Transit Convention requirement, so we are building our system according to those requirements. But what you will now have within phase 5 is the ability to amend a pre-lodged declaration. So we do know that a proportion of declarants, whether that be the trader themselves or whether that be a freight forwarder or a software house, currently, if you want to amend a pre-lodged declaration, it's a case of cancel it and start again. So one of the big improvements that will come with phase 5 is that you will have the ability to go in and amend that declaration that's been pre-lodged but hasn't started its journey yet. Another thing that's coming in is the ability to present the movement reference number for that declaration electronically throughout its journey. Now, this is not to be confused with a digital transit accompanying document. There were conversations around digitising the TAD in the early days of phase 5 being discussed. It's not something that I believe all acceding countries could agree on. So what we have is we have the ability to present the MRN electronically. So essentially what that means is the paper transit accompanying document no longer needs to travel with those goods and be presented at each of those offices of transit or each of those customs offices along the way. It will now be a case of whether it's a smartphone, whether it's a tablet, however each CTC member country deems necessary, that's how you will present that MRN to them. And in that vein, every CTC country that are busy developing NCTS Phase 5 at the moment, part of their requirement is that they will deem how it's possible for their borders to accept the MRN. Just as we're in conversation and working through with our border force colleagues who implement our policies at the border, we're working through how we will accept that MRN electronically on an import. And that's something that we're going to be coming out with as we go through the next several months up until November. We'll be feeding out this information as to how these processes will work and how you can implement them. And then what we have is a new customs office role. You can report an incident currently using the phase 4 system, but what generally happens is, and what actually happens is that if an incident occurs en route, such as damage to the seals or you have to transship onto a different vehicle, then normally it's just written onto the TAD, and then that's handed over at the office of destination. Then the driver or the haulier, whoever's in charge of the goods, has to wait around while that all gets uploaded to make sure there are no issues with that movement. What's going to happen now is this new customs role for the Office of Incident means that you can record those incidents en route in the country that you're travelling through at the nearest customs location that will have that customs office role. So that location will act as Office of Incident. They will record all of the details that are provided to them straight onto NCTS, and that will send a notification to the exporter at departure. It will also send a notification to destination, so that all of those details are known ahead of time before the vehicle or the goods turn up, so that if there are any additional checks or controls that are required because there's been an incident, then that should reduce any delay at that point, because all of that information is already in the system. And again, just to add, all of the customs officers within the UK will have this Office of Incident role. So all of the UK customs officers will perform this function. And then what I wanted to move on to was just a recap on communications that we've done so far. And I know we have a varied audience here. Apologies to those of you, I can see some faces that I recognise. Apologies if you've seen this before. But I just wanted to touch on some of the information that we've put out already. We do have a constant a constant drip feed of information that we're going to be providing to all sectors of to the trade industry. So that's from your importer, your exporter, whoever the declarant is, whether that be the trader or the freight forwarder or a software house, right the way through to the software developers that are working in partnership with us to get their software up and running. So we're putting these communications out every month, and we're doing that so that we can chunk up the information so as to try not to overload all in one go. So just a bit of a recap was in-flight movements. So because, as I've said, we're moving over on the 16th of November, there will be some movements that are still in process during that period between the 16th and the 30th. So this first communication that we sent out just advised what will happen between that period. So any movements that start, as I said, before the 16th should just carry on through their journey as normal. Any movements that start on or after the 16th will have to go into the new Phase 5 system, and that's either third-party software or our free-to-use web portal. That web portal is being updated in line with NCTS Phase 5, so that will be a new version of the web portal that will be available. And essentially what we said in this communication was really a little bit of a plea from us. If you do pre-lodge your declarations, because they will have to be released before the switchover on the 16th of November, then kind of a little bit of a plea is that where possible, try and limit the amount of declarations you are pre-lodging, purely to try and mitigate the risk of any declarations that aren't released by the time we switch over will have to be resubmitted into the new Phase 5 system. So it's really just making sure that everybody's aware that if the declaration isn't released by that point, then a new declaration will need to be submitted into the new system. And then we gave everybody a little bit of a break over Christmas, and the communication that's coming out this month is all about that Office of Incident rule. So you're getting a little bit of an early view of this because I think it's just due to come out. It either went out yesterday or it's coming out today. I was out of the office yesterday, unfortunately. So if you haven't seen it already, this is a little preview of this month's communication. So it's just telling you all about that Office of Incident rule that I've just ran through. One thing to call out, and you might notice that we're saying here, we're using the two dates on this communication. So we're talking about the 16th and the 30th. And that's because we want to make sure that everybody is still keeping the 16th in their minds, because that's the date that we switch over. However, the legislation and the rules around this Office of Incident rule don't come in until the 30th of November, which is that official deadline from the Common Transit Convention. So not to get the two confused, we've tried to make it really clear what those two different dates are. So it's just to bear in mind that the Office of Incident rule doesn't actually come into force until the 30th, when that switchover happens within the Common Transit Convention. We do want to make it clear that actually the reasons why you need to report an incident haven't changed. The theory and the process behind transit is not changing, it's the system that's changing. So although there are a number of enhancements, the reasons why you need to report that incident are still the same. And it's the person that's responsible for moving the goods, so as I said, it's the haulier or the carrier, that needs to make sure that that incident is reported en route. And what that Office of Incident rule will do, they will decide whether the goods can continue on their journey depending on what the incident is. If the incident is of such a nature that that office deems the journey needs to finish at that point, and it can't continue to destination, then that Office of Incident will, that Customs Office will carry out the functions of the Office of Destination. So it will become Office of Destination at that point. So they will carry out the arrival formalities at that point there. So then this is, I apologise for those of you that have seen the snake. This is a widely known product within Borders and Trade in HMRC. So this is my comms snake. So essentially, as I said, what we're doing, we're chunking up the information to try and make it as easily digestible as possible for those within the different sectors of the industry that need to understand it. So this just kind of shows you what we've done so far. So the first October and November October was an easing in month, reintroducing NCTS 5 as coming on the horizon. And then November was where we told you about the date, the 16th of November this year. As I say, we gave a bit of a break in December. There were a number of other communications coming out at that time, and we didn't want to overload our stakeholders. So that's why we've presented the in-flight scenarios in January. And then, as you can see, we've got a number of other elements that we're going to talk about. So March, for example, the draft, save, retrieve and amend is really all about the web portal. So those declarants who use the web portal via the government gateway will be able to draft a declaration, save it, go back to it at a later point, change any of the information you've already put in before you actually decide to submit it. And that's something that you can't do at the moment within the Phase 4 web portal. And then again, April, just some differences between what's available in third-party software compared to what's on the web UI. Electronic MRN, so we'll go more into the how and the what around that electronic MRN presentation in May. And then, as you can see, just a couple of other things. There are some minor changes to how you view your guarantee balance. We'll talk about those in June. New data requirements we've got there for July. And one thing I want to call out about this snake is that it is movable. So we're not saying that just because we've got electronic MRN down for May at the moment, we're not saying that's definitely going to be in May and it won't change. We will adapt based on feedback that we get. And actually, we have had some feedback just this week that some of our stakeholders feel that new data requirements needs to be made known well in advance of July. So there are technical specifications available for those third-party software developers who are building their software for Phase 5. But aside from those technical specifications, what we're being told is actually it would be beneficial to see all of the information around the new data requirements to understand what's being built, whether it's conditional or mandatory. So these themes are movable, and one thing we're going to do in the immediate future is look to change that new data requirements and pull that one forward a little bit. So this is just to give you an idea of the things that we need to come out and talk to you about and make you aware of, but that may change a little bit. So don't hold it to, it's not verbatim that it will definitely happen in that month, but that's the plan. And then obviously when we get to the end of the year, we'll come out in October to give a bit of a nudge to let you know that there's just 1 month left to go. And then in November, before that 16th date, we'll just give a little bit of a final nudge to make sure that everybody is on track for that. So that's the end of the presentation. But I do just want to say for those in the room who are developing software, whether that's for commercial purposes or for your own in-house use, we will have regular engagement throughout this year, and we will have technical clinics that we're going to stand up when our trader test window is available our trader test window, and I didn't put it on the slides, but just to briefly recap for those that don't know, our trade test window is available from early to mid-May. We will come out with an exact date. We will be providing test scenarios before that date for anyone who's developing software, and then that trade test window is open right the way through until the 16th of November and beyond for anybody that's coming into transit at a later point. And those tech clinics will be stood up as a minimum on a weekly basis in the early days. We'll take feedback if stakeholders think that they need more than once a week, then absolutely we'll take that into consideration. So that's enough waffle from me. Thank you.
Any questions?
Hi, Lorna.
Hello.
Hi. What happens to movements regarding the cutover? What happens to movements that are under investigation from the Office of Departure over the cutover? So if you raise something in NCTS 4, there's a discrepancy and it's not resolved by cutover. What happens to those movements?
So if they're already in an inquiry state at that point, then they will remain under investigation, and within that inquiry state, it will inevitably be what we're calling a manual process that will have to be carried out by whichever customs office is dealing with that inquiry. So if it's the UK, then we have manual processes that we're putting in place for those transitional states. So yeah, we have considered what might happen to those, but they will remain in an inquiry state and they should just be dealt with as normal.
Lorna, thank you for your presentation on the Office of Incident, which is interesting. And I can see the benefits, but just on the other side of the coin, if we've got somebody collecting goods, the police driver knows his way very well to Dover and is quite used to making that journey, but he has an incident en route, he breaks down or something, are we now saying that instead of being able to sort it out at Dover, he's got to go crawling round, for example, Nottingham city centre in the rush hour trying to find this Office of Incident that he can report the same thing to? Isn't there enough going on if he has an incident without them having to do that? Can't he do it online?
So in terms of being able to do it online, I think the fact that not everybody will have access to NCTS is the key here. And because it's no longer going to be kind of scribbled on the TAD in Polish or whatever language the driver speaks, the digitization of it, making it electronic via the nearest customs office, is going to hopefully make that journey a lot smoother. I don't think we would dictate that if he's en route to Dover and he has an incident, if Dover's, 30, 40, 50, 100 miles down the road, I don't think we would dictate that he has to go veering off to find another customs office. If that's what he deems as his nearest customs office, then absolutely we wouldn't, I don't believe we would stop that from happening. I think it's to make it easier for those drivers that are, en route and they're miles between the next office of transit or the office of destination.
I've been asked to put two questions to you. One, some of the export entries are going to be, I can't see it making a difference in Chief and others in CDS. Will that have any impact? And do you believe that the 27 EU states and the EFTA members are all going to be ready? I mean, we look specifically at places like Italy or Poland where implementation of this type of thing seems to take slightly longer. Do you see that as a challenge? Mm-hmm.
So, to answer your first question, in terms of the switch between Chief and CDS, there shouldn't be any issue with interactions with NCTS. NCTS will interact with both systems, so whichever customs system the export declaration has been put onto, NCTS will have those links into it, so there shouldn't be any issue there. In terms of your second question, obviously As I said, the 30th of November is a deadline that's laid down by the Common Transit Convention. We are aware that there are one or two members of the CTC who are four. We are aware that there are a small number of members who are asking for a delay. There has been no decision made on that. The decision has to be made by the Common Transit Convention. So as we stand, the deadline is still the 30th of November. Those other countries potentially being delayed has no impact on the UK deadline. So we are absolutely on track for the 16th of November, both with our internal system and with the web portal on Government Gateway. So we need to wait and see what comes out from the convention in terms of any changes, but we know that we are pushing on with NCTS 5. We know that NCTS 6 is hot on its heels, which is going to look at the transit and security accompanying documents, so that combined safety and security information with transit. So, and we know that that's something that a lot of stakeholders are dying for, to make life easier in terms of one less declaration to do. So absolutely we want to get NCTS 5 in, get it embedded, and then see what comes with 6.
Thank you very much. Last question.
I was just going to ask about the reporting system. Is that kind of aligning with America, where you have to kind of report each of the different consignments as they're going along their journey? So, for example, if it's coming from a sea to origin to port to the next port, and then port to inbound, they've got to report what's happening with that container, that they're still maintaining the same seals. Is this kind of a step in that kind of direction, or is it mainly just to, an incident, or will it then end up being more of a tracking of seals?
So the tracking should kind of take place throughout the journey anyway, because when you move from customs territory to customs territory, there's 3 functions within transit, and apologies for those that already know this, and I hope I get it right. There are 3 functions. So you've got your Office of Departure, and then for each customs territory that the goods move through, there will be an Office of Transit function. So you're kind of reporting its movement on the way until you reach the Office of Destination. So the Office of Incident is really more about linking in with that electronic MRN presentation, because they can no longer scribble what's happened on the TAD, but also about trying to relieve some of that delay and that burden at the end destination point, because actually the goods will already have, the details of the incident will already have been uploaded onto the system wherever it happens along the way. So, the system might get updated in Germany and the goods aren't actually arriving at destination until they hit the UK. So rather than that delay at the end, they're uploaded at that point. So it's more just about making it a bit of a smoother process.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.